You're listening to Out Loud and Live with JC Alvarez. NBC premiered its latest medical drama, Brilliant Minds, starring Zachary Quinto as Dr. Oliver Wolf, a specialist in traumas associated with mental health. The series is the brainchild of writer, executive producer Michael GRASSI, whose career working on many hit series, including Riverdale and GRASSI, has led him on an inspired road to brilliant minds. Here now is Michael GRASSI.
Hi, JC. How are you?
Good. How are you, Michael?
I'm good. Thank you for doing this today.
Oh, no, thank you. I really appreciate you taking the minute to tell us all about the new series, Brilliant Minds. It's actually really not your ordinary medical drama. How long has this idea been gestating? How long have you been trying to tackle it?
Yeah, good question. I think I started working on this July 2020, which was like the middle of the pandemic. I started developing it. And as you know, so much has happened in our industry between COVID and strikes, but I do believe that the story we're telling is timeless, and the time that it's coming out right now feels like the perfect time. I always say that, we're talking about mental health in a way that we haven't in the past, and this really feels like the medical show for our time, and a time when we
Right.
really need hope. And that's sort of one of the big themes on our show is finding hope even when things seem like they're at their darkest. So
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I'm hoping that this feels like a warm well, while it's a medical mystery, entertaining and fun, it's also like a cozy warm blanket at times.
Right. And I love that idea because that's something that really resonates with so many people nowadays. Mental health issues have become so important just across the board with our culture and society. And to be dealing them in an hour drama every week is fascinating. Very, very interesting in that it leads the story always leads with a sense of compassion. You always have the characters sort of like really trying to like find that sense of compassion with their trials. Speak to that sort of like finding the in each caper that what the doctors have to deal with, especially Dr. Wolf with his patients, are all these like real life scenarios.
All of the medicine on the show, even when it might seem like it's larger than life or impossible, is all very grounded and very real. And one of the things that Oliver Sacks, the real life doctor, did, he always came to his patients and very simply asked, "How are you? How do you do?" That very simple, basic question. And that's what Dr. Wolf does as well in our show. He comes to his patients and he wants to get to know them and understand them in order to help them. Because in order to really help someone, you have to know who they are, because just because someone's diagnosed with someone doesn't mean they all have the same sort of way forward or solution to, and sometimes there isn't sort of a clear fix. Um, so I think the compassion really comes from Oliver Sacks, who's our North Star, who really was one of those doctors whose superpower was empathy in many ways.
Mm. Yeah, and speaking to that, finding someone who can convey that, you've got a really great three-tier trinity in the lead cast. Can you speak to casting Zachary Quinto in this role, especially to sort of like lead this team? Tamara Perry and Teddy Sears. What was it like the process of finding someone to represent this doctor?
Yeah, well, when I was developing the project, Zach was always sort of the person in my imagination. He was sort
Yeah.
of the dream prototype doctor for to play Dr. Wolf. And sometimes in this business, you don't always reach the person that you sort of have top of mind because they might not be available, or they might be doing a play in somewhere else. Who knows for what reasons. But when we finished writing the pilot, along with NBC and Warner Brothers, we sent the script to Zach, and he read it and he responded, and we met with him. And JC, it's since that Zoom onward, it's sort of been one of the best collaborations of my career, and it's been so satisfying and so rewarding to see Zach bring this character to life, which feels like a really new and exciting role for him. And I can't wait for audiences to see what he's doing and his chemistry with Tamberla and with Teddy and with all the interns and with Donna Murphy and with all of the patients. Zach really always finds something special with everybody. And he also brings so much wit and humor and
Mm.
levity to the character. And I love so many medical dramas and I love House so much as well. And one of the big differences is that House was like such a curmudgeon with his patients and Wolf is the opposite, like Wolf is almost like too empathetic to his patients with a fault and like too earnest sometimes. And it's like later in the season we do meet some patients who are like, whoa, like ease off, like why so interested in so many parts of my life.
I was also, I was really taken very much because, of course, first episodes kind of like set the pace and the tone for the rest of the series. And the pilot opens up with this with one of his patients who he reconnects through music. He's a musician and he reignites, gets him out of his Alzheimer's using music. And I found that so fascinating that I was compelled to, like, as I was watching the rest of the episode, it almost felt lyrical to me. Like everything was about music in that first episode. It felt like, they were all sort of like becoming a band. And then at the end, we've got this great cast. And I love that idea that music triggers something, a memory in us. Uh, Given the circumstances, what would trigger your memory? Like if you were in that same situation as that patient, what would be sort of like your music?
Yeah, well, JC, that's such a good question. And I love that you sort of are really speaking the language of the show in the sense that like music in many ways is a form of medicine, and that, yes, it can bring back memories. It can also help calm a patient. There's so many things that music can do. I think what would sort of bring me out is probably my strongest sense is like a very specific smell, perhaps like of my grandmother's basement when she's like making tomato sauce or like something like that. Like probably like a very visceral, like a primal smell is the thing that might get me.
Also, have you been having a good time sort of like, have you learned and are you having a good time kind of like balancing this act, the in this world of this medical drama, and making these characters sort of resonate with your audience? Has it created something in you that you're like, whoa, this is really, I'm really feeling this. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, it's been so it's been a big challenge in the best way possible. Tackling a medical drama is new for me, and especially um I always feel like when you're doing something new, it can be scary. And my friend Casey always says, "Do it scared," is something that she always says. So I always
Right on.
yeah, it's like just do it scared. And I think that's something that our doctors are dealing with as well, especially our young interns. Like they're having to do this, and I think they're doing it scared a lot of the times. And how do they navigate that? And um, yeah, I'm learning every day, and I'm learning every step of the way. And I hope to continue learning, and I hope to continue sort of pushing the show. And every time you make an episode of a show, you learn something new about the show. And I think you really feel that throughout the season is like we are learning something new, and the show sort of it really takes off as it keeps going, and I'm just excited for audiences to see it.
Yeah, yeah. Fear is a great motivator.
Yes, yes, definitely.
I think in especially given your success in your career, I mean, it's like, this journey to now Brilliant Minds, which will be premiering on NBC. Uh, you must have tackled a lot of that, sort of like just breaking through and battling your fear in order to tell your stories. Because I mean, it's like you talk about like all the genres that you've played with. You've played in teen angst, and you've played in superheroes, and how is Brilliant Minds? How has the lead up to Brilliant Minds been influenced by everything that you've touched upon?
That's such a good question, JC. I think I've learned something on every show and every experience that I've done. Um, and I think that does inform everything that you do. Um, and one thing in particular I often think about is on my very first writing job, which was the teen soap Degrassi. That was the first job I ever had a long time ago now. Um, One of the things we talked about in the room was we want audiences to feel like they are not alone. And that's something that I feel that simple idea is something that I've carried forth to Brilliant Minds, that if we can sort of reach one person out there who is dealing with something and make them feel like they're not alone, I feel like we are doing our jobs in making this show successfully. And obviously, first and foremost, I want it to be entertaining and exciting and mysterious and fun. But if we can also Trojan horse this message of sort of helping to destigmatize mental health, then I think we're making something really special, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And that seems to be your creative through line, making sure that there is this sense of representation of people feeling that they're part of something. I can see that in your work. I can see that that is something that is always, and also something I think is generally overlooked. I think it's only something recently that we've really managed to make whole in television dramas where it's we want to show that everyone is represented. And to that, equality and representation in entertainment has come a long way, and you certainly contributed to that. Do you think that work is being done well, or do you still think we have work to do?
I always think there is work to do. It's like, well, we've come a long way. I think there's always still a long way to go, you know? And I think the minute that we sit back and say, okay, we've done it, we've done a good job, the moment that we start going backwards. So it's sort of the same way where like my hope is that I never stop learning. And I hope that I keep learning something new every day. Our world is constantly changing and we have to be in dialogue with it. In a way that feels like we're talking about things that are important to our audiences, and in a way where we're in dialogue with them. We're not preaching, we're not sensationalizing, and that's what's nice about having an ensemble cast, is that people in our ensemble can have different ideas and POVs on what might be best for a patient, or what sort of medical approaches or life approaches are more and then to be in dialogue and debate over these things, I think, is what makes a great TV show. And having different points of views that are reflected on screen and in the writer's room and in making the show, and that sort of representation and diversity is so important on screen and off screen.
Yeah, I love that idea of the dialogue, opening dialogue, because it really does make a difference. Um, who have been your heroes in your career? Like people that because you've had some really great teammates along the way and worked with some really great stuff. Who have been some of the bigger influences in your creative career?
I mean, so many. I'm such a super fan of television, and I admire so many people out there who are making so many amazing, great, so many incredible shows, you know. And I love TV so much, and I feel so lucky that I get to do it. And from when I was very young, I think one of the reasons why I'm doing this today is because a lot of the shows that Greg Berlanti created and wrote and worked on. Greg Berlanti was so formative. He's created so many beloved, iconic shows, and the fact that I've been working with him for I think 10 years now and have the opportunity to make Brilliant Minds with him feels like a dream come true. And I feel very fortunate to be working with Greg, and also people like Roberto Aguirre Sacasa, who I worked on Riverdale, and Katie Keene with, and then so many people out in the business. Like I'm such a big Shonda Rhimes fan. I love Ryan Murphy shows. I sort of love it all, you know. I'm a big TV fan, and I feel very lucky to be out here making it alongside all of these very talented people.
Right on. And now with Brilliant Minds about to make a splash, what do you want audiences to take away from with this new show, this new endeavor of yours?
Yeah, I hope they come to it to sort of like get to know all these characters and fall in love with them the same way that I have, you know, and the same way that a lot of our cast have, and yeah, I just hope that people sort of join the dialogue with us, you know, and they feel seen and like they're represented, I think, are all the things that are really important to me.
Right on. Michael, thank you so much for spending some time with me. Congratulations on the show, and I'm sure that everyone will be tuning into Brilliant Minds.
Thank you, JC. Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
You've been listening to Out Loud and Live with JC Alvarez. If you like what you've heard, tune in and also check out thefanzite.com for all your entertainment and pop culture news. I thank Michael Grassi for spending some time with me and opening us up to Brilliant Minds. premiering on NBC on Monday, September 23rd at 10/9 Central, starring Zachary Quinto. Check your local listings. Thanks for joining me, and always stay tuned.